Welcome to the Trying premiere.
You guys are actually the first people ever to see Trying. Ever. Especially, you're going to get to see it on the big screen, which there's nobody better to introduce than the one, the only Trying creator, Samantha Labrecque!
Oh my God, thank you so much. There's not a better person, actually, to introduce as our first guest speaker. First up to speak on ADHD awareness and the significance of women in film, we have our very own, actually, I'm going to give you a proper intro. Just hang tight right there. Edith Mudge. Edith was the composer for Trying. You're going to see her fabulous music all throughout the film here tonight. She is a composer and producer based out of LA, and having trained with A-list composers and production houses alike, Edith has carved out a place for herself in media composition. To date, her music has been placed in 2,000 plus episodes of 500 plus series and films, including Saturday Night Live, Booksmart, and The Voice. She is an active member of Joy House Music, an elite force of musical operatives, and co-director of communications for the Alliance for Women Film Composers. Excuse me. So please welcome Edith Mudge.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I was diagnosed with ADHD about 3 years ago at the age of 28. So you can imagine it's been quite a journey. So when I heard about this film about a woman with ADHD, I was like, oh my God, pick me, because I'm just dying to help tell this story and have more stories like this out in the ether. Sam sent me the script, and I think one of the first things that I ever said to her was, did you bug my house? Because I feel really called out. I immediately loved it. I was completely on board. Because, besides being that ridiculously accurate call out, it's a story that we don't see enough about a woman with ADHD. And there's so much that I could talk about when it comes to this subject. I thought about going into how children socialized as girls are vastly underdiagnosed because their symptoms are different. Excuse me, loosey-goosey. And often because of that socialization, it's not recognized that they have ADHD. But gratefully, we're in an era where the internet has lots of resources for us that I encourage you to go and look up and see if ADHD is something that may be around you in your life that you may not have considered. So I can only speak to my own experience, but I think it's valuable to share individual stories, and mine is the only one that I know, so I'm gonna do that. Oh, you can hear my cats are starting to play, so good job, girls. I first started considering ADHD for myself when I was in my early 20s, when I started seeing infographics and memes on Facebook about common ADHD symptoms in women. And they were all specifically things that I'm constantly ashamed of in myself. And as it turns out, feelings of shame and depression, which I've struggled with for many years, are very common consequences of ADHD. For example, I've always been very messy and disorganized to a terrifying fault, with which anybody who's ever known me can attest to. I'm chronically late. I can't find something or remember what I'm doing, or completely losing my train of thought. It's not great. I have trouble concentrating if I'm not moving in some way. And in high school, after years of shamefully doodling, leg jiggling, writing my class notes in code, some sort of a secret code, or in calligraphy, or in French, I finally discovered that knitting in class was somehow more socially acceptable and also really helpful for me. I have lots of great ideas. I have trouble finishing most of them without accountability. And I also have vast worlds of daydreams that I occasionally forget to leave, and a nasty case of rejection-sensitive dysphoria, which means that it can feel like the end of the world if I perceive myself as an outsider, which is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy with something like ADHD. But I never looked like someone with ADHD. And why is that? because I got straight A's at a 3.8 GPA. I might not have been the top of my class, but I was pretty close. I was the captain of the high school ski team, leader in the music department, yada, 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 all this good stuff. I was a high achiever. And neurodivergence doesn't negate or invalidate any of this. And it exists on a continuum that encompasses many, many different types of experiences. But it's a known phenomenon that some, like myself, are known to be very high achieving because we are trying so hard to prove our internal monologue wrong about being lazy or useless. So choosing to diagnose my ADHD came, as it does, about 6 years after first reading about it, because of course that's how long it took me to act on it without meds. I was shocked to walk out of my psychiatrist appointment with a diagnosis and a prescription. Like, was I that easy a case? I grew up in a family of psychiatry skeptics and have always been afraid of being like an imposter or like seeking out stimulant medication that I don't actually need. So yeah, that was definitely a big fear that I had to work through in my early days of my diagnosis. Of course, I was afraid that I was fooling my psychiatrist, who certainly had never seen somebody with ADHD before, or something like that. Very silly in retrospect. But my psychiatrist and my therapist assured me that, yes, it was pretty straightforward. They told me that basically the worst thing that could happen was that it just didn't feel right. So I decided to try it. And the first day that I took Vyvanse, I truly felt like I had opened my eyes for the first time. It was crazy. I cried a lot for the first few months because I had no idea what I'd been missing. I felt sad for my past. I felt pretty elated for my future. I had no idea how difficult things had been for me until the difficulty had lifted. I like to describe the difference in my brain functioning as though my thoughts are like insects and my unmedicated brain is a piece of flypaper. It catches everything and it holds on to it. And it's not just flies. It's dust, pieces of trash, rejection. They just stay on there, they pile up, and even if you deal with them, they don't go away, and they just obstruct room for anything new to come in. So anxiety just builds. But on meds, it felt like my brain was more like a beehive. So the thoughts could come through, fly in, do their thing, fly back out. If the queen bee needed to hold on to them for a little bit longer, she could. But there was choice, and that was the difference. For example, I was shocked to discover on meds that I could have the thought, I want a snack. And then I could say, no. And then it would just go away. It was unreal. It wouldn't be like buzzing and buzzing and buzzing at me until I let it in. So the amount of clarity that I've gained is life-changing, and it has given me more confidence than I've ever had before. My symptoms have improved, my sense of self has improved, and my eyes have opened to the restrictive way that disability is treated in our larger culture. So when I moved to LA, I actually had no intention of being a composer. I'd always loved composing, but I wasn't great at music tech, so I just didn't even consider that it could be a job for me. One day I came across a panel by the Alliance of Women Film Composers. The general consensus at this panel was that a lot of men composers like to gatekeep women composers by telling them that they aren't good at tech. This was exactly my experience, and I hadn't even known it. These women had all learned the tech, they could attest that it wasn't difficult, and I decided to give it a try, and I learned, and I did it. I'm a woman composer now. It was my light bulb moment about the importance of representation. I'd never seen a woman film composer before, so I'd never heard what one had to say, and I had no idea that there was a place for me. But now I can say that there is, and I'm really grateful for that. My hope for this beautiful film, Trying, is that it can be a light bulb moment for others. It can be like that random infographic that I saw on Facebook that made me think, wow, kind of sounds like I have ADHD. Or it can be that panel that made me think, wow, if they can be composers, maybe I can be a composer. Maybe somebody will see themselves or their loved ones in Meg, or even in this amazing and beautiful team that created this film. And yeah, there's a lot of great representation here. This film may depict one specific example and experience of ADHD, but it could mean the world for someone who needs to see it. Either way, I think it tells a universal story about obstacles, the indignities that we endure to deal with them, and the raw beauty that comes in the aftermath. So thank you so much for involving me. I'm really proud of the work that everyone has done, and will be showing this off to everyone I know. Hopefully that's all y'all watching this today. So Sam, it's been a pleasure. Hope you all enjoy.
Okay, next up, the crew, as you may hear me say all these beautiful women's names, was actually all women. I'm sure a lot of you know that. That was very important to me, including our first assistant director, Marilyn Flores, who is our next guest speaker. Let me get to Marilyn's little bio before we jump in. Marilyn is a filmmaker based in LA and just moved here officially to LA. She was up in NorCal we were shooting and drove down here, which I was so thankful for. She's been working full time. Oh, didn't put the lipstick on for nothing. Wearing many hats as a producer, assistant director, and director of photography. She is a filmmaker interested in exploring stories of identity and belonging. This is perfect for that. You were just seriously meant to be. Marilyn was honestly one of the first people who reached out to me about this project, and she was like, I don't care what I do on it, I just want to be a part of it. And that, seriously, I'm so grateful to have you. Okay, she has worked on a wide range of projects such as shorts, narrative films, TV series, documentaries, and commercials, and she's an advocate for equality and inclusion in film sets. Obviously, please welcome Marilyn Flores.
But I'm super excited to be here, and I cannot be, much honored to be here. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone who collaborated and all the Seed and Spark supporters. Thank you so much for making this possible. Again, a little bit about myself. I'm a filmmaker. Now I'm based in LA, but I've been working for the past 5 to 6 years in the Bay Area, doing a lot of different type of projects. I've been doing from like producing, assistant directing, or also being behind the camera. So I've done a little bit of everything. And then when I saw Sam posting in this Facebook group, I was like, oh my God, like I am going to move to LA soon. This is going to be the right project for me to get started over there. And it was amazing that we were able to collaborate. It was great. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience as a women filmmaker, and also some of maybe the stereotypes and the things that are changing in the industry. First of all, say that I think that we are in very exciting times to be women in film, but there's also a lot of challenging parts. And if you can, hear some of the experiences from Edith, she mentioned a lot of parallels to my experience as a girl in film. And some of that is probably the imposter syndrome, which for some of you who don't know what the imposter syndrome is, it's when you have like an internal experience or believing that you are not as competent or you cannot do a job as others. And this happens, it's interesting that when Sam was talking about ADHD and how it's so difficult to diagnose in girls, it's also, this is also a parallel with the imposter syndrome in girls too, because there's been research that says that women are not going to apply to a job if they don't feel like they are qualified. Like, let's say they're asking for all these numerous experiences. They're going to be like, oh, I don't know how to do just one thing. And because of that, I don't think I can get it. I don't think I can do it. And the reality is guys, they don't care, and they just say, well, I cannot do those little two things, but I'll apply. They'll give it to me, and they're the ones who get hired, you know? So every time that I am working on a film set, every time that I'm putting a crew together, or I know I meet a new filmmaker, I ask them, what do you want to do? Like, what do you see yourself doing after? Like, maybe you don't have the experience right now, but what do you want to do, and why don't you try? So for me, that probably has been the most challenging part, trying to, you know, step up and say, like, I can do it. And for the most part, it's always going to be a learning experience, and it's always going to be great. So why not to try it? Try it, just like the movie. And so for me, that's, you know, the constant battle. But at the same time, I want to say I've been super supported to be part of like so many good films, like Trying. When I saw that Sam wanted to build these like all women filmmakers crew, I was like, yes, I want to do that. I'm so interested. And it was actually my first time working on set. We were 100%, you know, a female team. So that felt really, really well. And we had some challenges, of course, like in any other film set. But we were able to manage, and we were able to do it. And that was very rewarding. So all I can say is, in my humble experience, you know, there's going to be ups and downs every, you know, in every industry, but at least I can see that there is, you know, some change going on in the film industry for girls. And lately I've just been, you know, overwhelmed to see, I mean, not overwhelmed, but I've been like so excited to see so many posts or so many projects that are specifically asking for girl cinematographers or for girls producers, because those are, you know, the positions of power that are going to allow other women or other people to come and do it. So I'm super lucky that I was able to collaborate in this film. It was great. And I think is a good time to be a girl in film.
So, without further ado, enough yapping. It is time. We are here.
I'm so excited to finally share.
The Trying team's hearts and souls are up here on the screen for the first time.
Please enjoy.
Trying!